Two, one. Going live, and we are live. Hallelujah. All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Third Eye Salon. And tonight's conversation is going to be about looking at how different governments, well, three, because that's what we have for our quorum tonight, three different governments, how they dealt with and are approaching dealing with currently the pandemic. And yeah, we just want to give an honest look. We want to give a clear platform on what has been happening and what could be happening, what has happened versus the possibilities of what could have happened by comparing and contrasting. So we'll do some introductions here so we know everyone that's coming on to do the talk. Also, Ms. Courtney is going to be doing our engagement today. So if you are live, please chat with Ms. Courtney and she will bring your responses and your questions to us. Linda Coulter-Burge, how I adore thee. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Of course, of course. This is an important topic for us to cover. And Lord knows I'm not any kind of an expert on it, but I think it's just learning how other people are dealing with this because it's important to have that information. Love to hear in the chats, whether you watch this now or later, to put your experience in your local town, community, your country. What are you seeing?
Absolutely. Leave your comments below. Even if this is not the live chat for you, leave your comments below and please feel free to vent however you need to vent to share your experiences because your voice matters. You matter, and we want to hear from you. All right, Jillian Leonard. She is usually our engagement gal. She's coming in because she's from Canada. And Jillian, thank you so much for being here with us and welcome to the show tonight.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
It is a delight. And yeah, Jillian's going to have some kind of really eye-popping experiences versus what we've experienced in America, or the US, I should say. And then, okay, I need to warn everybody, this next person we're bringing in, she may annoy you. She may just irritate you to the nth degree. I've had to live with her for decades. Okay, it's my niece, Nikayla Earlywine. Welcome, Nikayla, to the show. Happy to have you here.
Hi, happy to be here. And don't listen to anything he says.
Yeah, I can't.
Except that he's about to tell you to like, share, and subscribe so that you can be notified of these new ones. So you can listen to that.
Yeah, only that.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, like, share, subscribe. Please share this content with other people if you are feeling that it is relevant and resonates with you. Nikayla lived in New Zealand during the pandemic, and so she's got a completely different perspective, which was blowing my mind when I was chatting with her about it when it was happening in real time back in the day. I mean, the pandemic is ongoing, but there was still, like, when it was happening, the way that New Zealand handled it was just like, what? So, and to give you a reference point, like, Linda was doing some work with the government, and I'm currently doing work with the government. And, you know, we may not give you the details of exactly those states or those countries or any of that stuff for the purpose of protecting information. Like, I would get literally in huge trouble if I told you which state I'm working for and my exact job. But I will give you the wealth of my information in terms of what I've seen working with people who have been struggling through the pandemic. And we're really kind of doing a cross share, compare, contrast, so we can dig into those details. And let's see where we should start. Miss Linda, what has been your experience of being in the United States and the pandemic? What have you experienced in terms of our government's response to people who are in crisis?
Lacking. I'll start with one word, lacking. So for me, what I'm experiencing and what I'm seeing around, because I live in a very small town now, tourist-based town, so the economy has been smashed to smithereens because people aren't traveling, and a lot of the businesses are suffering greatly. And what I universally hear from people, and I'm sure there are people that don't agree with this, is that it really is that people are not upset about the lockdown if they were compensated in some way to stay safe and be locked down. They wouldn't, the people who, we have a couple restaurants here that are not closing, and half of the population is completely upset with them. I live in a retirement-based community, so I'm the youngest person in town, I think, almost. So it is a very fragile, health-wise community as well. And so there's a lot of frustration in the community. We have the maskers and the anti-maskers, and but I think the anxiety and the angst that I see, that I've witnessed when I did do my government duty for a couple months, talking with people, was that it comes down to finance. It comes down to, we have a society where we are living paycheck to paycheck because we're pretty underpaid if we are working as an employee. And it's really true. It's no longer, oh, people only have 1 month of income. People don't have that month of income unless they're working. And that, in a lot of cases, is incredibly fractured now. And so the anxiety is not as much about the societal piece of it, that we have that. It is a lot more on the income issues that are associated with all of this. And our government really fell flat in every way to support businesses, to support small businesses, because even with our first stimulus, the majority of that went to huge, huge chains and businesses, and not the little guys. And so I experienced that even in my own business, looking at what I could possibly do, because I had a lot of businesses that I earned income off of doing their merchant services, and they closed because they couldn't stay open. And it breaks my heart to watch all these businesses struggling without some kind of real compensation to help them. And instead of putting people on, you can tell this is my thing, instead of putting people on unemployment, which is what our country has decided to do, many countries continued to pay employers the payroll so that their employees were still paid. They didn't have to go into an unemployment situation. They just knew it was cheaper and safer to have them paid during this time. And that had a much higher compliance. Countries that are doing that are having a much higher compliance, not having as much rage and anti-masking, because they're not in as much fear, because it's all the financial piece. Not all, but a lot of it's the financial. They're much more willing to do some of the restrictions for a short time if they were paid, or if they were compensated.
Yep, I think that's very fair. I'll get more into my experience, but to reaffirm your experience, Linda, definitely it seemed that if you weren't essential or tech, anybody within that gap, you're on your own. And even if you were granted the measly $1,200 that was given back in July, if you had a spouse, if you were married to somebody who didn't have an American Social Security number, like if you were married to somebody who just had a green card, Latino, German, wherever they were coming from, you were denied your 1,200 as well. Because why? Well, if we can find any reason to not give you some money, oh, that's a good reason to not give you money. That has been, seems to be the theme. To give you a little thumbnail sketch before we move, I want to talk to Ms. Jillian next. But my experience has been in working with customer support for people who have been trying to get financial support through the pandemic, who were just everyday mom and pop, you and me. There have been so many issues in getting people those funds that a lot of these people have experienced losing their home. Now they lost their car. Now they lost their cell phone. So even if they suddenly were able to be given their money, there's no way to reach these people because they've been stripped of every single part of normal life, and they are just left wandering, essentially, left on their own to figure it out. Go ahead, Ms. Linda. Yeah.
There's one more critical thing in a pandemic that they've been stripped of: their health care.
Oh, yes.
Because if they worked for someone and had insurance and they don't have a job anymore, they have to go on what they call COBRA, or some states are lucky enough to have a state Medicaid program or some other program that's similar. But, you know, if you made too much, if your family makes too much, then you're not eligible. So there's a lot of people now walking around without health insurance in the middle of this crisis. And that's infuriating.
Yep, absolutely. It's incredible. To me, this has been very revealing in terms of in America, where you can see how valuable you are or not in terms of this pandemic and how you've been supported or not supported. At the same time, I know this is a point of rebirth. This isn't just pointing a finger at the government and saying, you should, because fundamentally, this is about us owning our power and us saying the system is broken and we're not going to take it anymore. We're going to do something different. We're in that birth pang. We're in that birth pang of saying, oh my God, I really counted on you. It's like having a really bad boyfriend. We're like, you promised me all this. I counted on you. Wow, you've completely betrayed me. And it's at that point you decide that you're going to do something different for yourself. You have a new sense of self-worth, a new sense of self-value, ideally, except for those people who are still clinging on and still holding on and waiting for the system to give them what it's always given them in little drips and drabs. This is a crisis. This is the awakening point where we say, oh, the system's broken. Maybe it's broken on purpose. Maybe it's intentionally this way to drain us of our life force and our energy. That's a thought. Are we going to try to reestablish a broken system so that we can keep hanging on to these drips and drabs? Or are we going to wake up and create something new? I want to make sure that's put in this conversation, because this is an awakening point, but we also want to honor people's transition in this awakening point and how they have been treated during this process. Let's shift over to Miss Jillian. And Jillian, what's been your experience of the pandemic in Canada,
Well, when it started, I mean, from the time that the virus was within the community until the time that everything shut down and we had money in our pockets was within a week.
Wow.
And I mean, if you were in a situation as an individual, as a business, and you lost your income due to the virus, they were giving you money. And they were giving you a set amount monthly. It was not unemployment. Right now, it has transitioned to unemployment. But if you're in a position where you don't qualify for the unemployment, they are still giving you money.
Wow.
And they're giving, yeah. And it's the same amount, like with the unemployment, the rate was much lower than what it is now per month that they would give you if you were unemployed and you needed to draw from that pool. So right now they've upped it, like they've matched it to what they've been giving everybody since it started. Yeah, and even right now, like if you're at a job and your wages are 50%, 50% or higher less than what you were making before, they're topping it off. You're still eligible for that money.
So
What a difference. And
Yeah.
so I imagine you're not, there's obviously still stress there, but the
Yeah.
financial stress that we're seeing in this country and people losing their homes and everything, you're not seeing there, correct?
No, we're not. I mean, and I'm not speaking for everybody. There are people who have slipped through the cracks, but I mean, that is very, very low compared to the people that are being carried and held right now by the government.
And how are they treating, if someone does become ill, what are they responsible for their treatment, their medical treatment?
Oh yeah. So what they do, I mean, we have Medicare here. Even if we don't have health insurance, I mean, aside from our prescriptions, which if you don't have health insurance, it's not very high, we're still covered. As long as we have our Medicare card, which we all should have our Medicare card, we're fine. And not only that, there's also, say your child got sick with the virus, or say you had to be the caregiver of somebody who is sick, they're also supporting you financially in that position as well. Like we're really,
And you're
fine.
not going broke as a country, are you?
Pardon me?
You're not going broke as a country. Like you don't have to figure out how they're going to pay for that.
Right. It's debatable. I mean, there's so many different opinions on it. I mean, people are mad, people are happy. You know, the people who are getting this financial help, there is the opposite where people are just furious, saying, you know, it's going to come from my pocket and this and that, which is understandable. But at the end of the day, I mean, what do you do? What do you do? And I mean, the first time that I talked to Kat, I even asked him, I said, what are they doing for you? Like, what's going on there for support? And he was like, nothing.
Right.
And that's a shame. That's a shame.
Well,
Yeah.
the fact that the people in Canada didn't have to qualify for support. Like my experience working with a specific state, which I can't specify, but the specific state was like, you have to qualify for unemployment or another program which comes after unemployment, or the program that comes after that, or the final step, which is purely federally funded. It's like you have to qualify for one of these and you have to fill out the forms. And if you fill out a form wrong, we're going to deny you. Like, it was just like, if there was a stone for you to trip on and you tripped on it, you're not going to get that support until we get it figured out on our side, which could take months. There are people who have applied for assistance back in March that still haven't received it because of issues within the system. And what you're telling me is that in Canada, you didn't have to apply for it. They were just like, here's financial support for you. We know this is a crisis for everybody. Is that what I'm understanding?
There was a quick application. I mean, they opened it completely. They said you need to, technically, you did need to qualify. You needed to have lost income due to the virus. That was your qualification. I mean, you didn't have to qualify for unemployment, anything. I mean, I didn't qualify for unemployment because I had been on parental leave for a year up until this point, but I still qualified for the assistance once I came off of my parental leave, because that was one of the qualifications. Like they left it open. They said, whoever needs money, go on here, answer these questions. If you lie about it, we will catch you and you will have to pay it back. So anyone, I mean, it was clear as mud. Anybody who went into that system and lied about their situation, they are getting nailed for it and they are having to pay it back. But I mean, at the end of the day, they knew that. because right on in the questions that you would have to answer in order to get your money, the only way you would get through if you didn't qualify was to lie about it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so yeah, it was clear as day as opposed to clear as mud. They were very, very clear in terms of like, if you want to mess yourself up, here's how you do it. Otherwise, there's an open door.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it went. And yeah,
And have they had lockdowns in Canada?
yeah,
And what types of things are they allowing or not allowing?
When it started up, we went, see, we have colors. We have green, which is normal, yellow, which is, you know, the step above normal. Then there's orange, which we are in right now. And then there's red. So in March, when it first started up, as soon as we started to get the virus within the community, everything was shut down. Schools were shut down, businesses, everybody. And we had to stay home. And it was almost immediate. Within a week and a half, I would say, since we started getting cases here, everything shut down. That lasted, if I'm remembering correctly, about a month, maybe a bit less. The schools didn't open back up. The schools opened back up this September that just passed, like for the next grade. They kept the schools closed. They did open the businesses and the restaurants back up, which would bring them into the orange phase. Yeah, we did go on lockdown, but
and when they did that immediately, did you see as much of a swell as you hear we're having here in the US with our cases? Because we had a long delay before we did anything.
Yeah, no, they went down. We did it because they were quick. And this is speaking for New Brunswick, where I live. I mean, all of Canada was not like this. Where I am, it was very, very quick. Cases went down every time they go to a different phase. Like to get the cases down, it typically works. Right now, we're in a bit of a jump. But from what I've seen from the past year, every time that this does happen, the cases do go down. But again, that's just where I am. That's definitely not all of Canada.
For the whole of Canada. We can't ask you to speak for the whole of Canada.
No. Yeah.
And
Courtney asks, did they have a second shutdown?
Where I am, they did not have a second shutdown. We've been in the orange several times, which is the schools are open, the restaurants are open. There's more, how would I say it? Not that there's more rules, but there's more being hard about it. Like we have peace officers in here. If you're out with someone who doesn't have the same address as you on their license or on their ID, then you're going to get a fine. You have to separate. They'll get a fine. At first, when we were in the orange, we could have a household bubble. So that would be, say, I wanted my parents or, you know, a friend, whatever. We could be within those two households. That has pretty much shut down within the orange phase here. So what it is now, we're stuck to our families or to our households. We can have like a caregiver. If someone needs assistance, we can have that person, a support person, but that's basically it.
Okay.
Yeah. And do people wear masks when they go out?
Oh yeah. Yep. We're wearing masks everywhere.
Do you have a resistance? Do you have a lot of people resisting it?
Not so much here. There was one incident one day downtown. I think there were about maybe 50 anti-maskers getting together and doing some sort of something. But other than that, not really. I mean, people will complain, but nothing big.
I know in Germany there was a big push against that, which you don't hear. You only in the media, you only hear like pro agenda. You don't hear any of the counterpoints. And if the counterpoints are shown, those people are shown as being hysterical. and is being crazy, and they're the crazy ones that are causing all the problems. It's a very divisive. It's not, doesn't feel, in America, in my view of it, and people may not agree with this, and that is okay. We all get to have our own experiences and our own opinions. To me, it's like if you are on the one side of somebody who's pushing against the agenda, the narrative being given, those people are labeled as crazy and that you're the problem, and the people who are following in line are the people who are the saints and angels. It's very divisive. And I, we're not here to tell you what you're doing is right or what you're doing is wrong. We're just trying to uncover the reactions of the countries, and how those countries have handled it, and the core of it versus how people have been supported versus if they've not been supported. So let's move into Nikayla's experience in New Zealand. Again, Nikayla is very irritating and may grate against your nerves. I apologize. I'm kidding. Love her to absolute bits. Nikayla, what was your experience in New Zealand when the pandemic hit, and how the government supported the people versus abandoning the people, which is my experience in the US. Unless you were like essential, if you weren't essential, you're pretty much left to figure it out on your own. That's my rough take on it. Nikayla, what was your experience?
Yeah, so we basically were given a 48-hour notice from the Prime Minister, Jacinda, that we are going to go in like a very strict lockdown. And it happened very quickly. Like it was, we heard about the virus being in Europe, and then all of a sudden it was a Monday, and the government did a news conference on, and it was just like on Wednesday at midnight, this is, and this and this and this is going to happen. And so we went into a very strict lockdown where the only businesses that were open were pharmacy, hospital, and supermarkets. That was it. There was no, McDonald's was closed, KFC was closed, like literally every single business was closed. There were like police checkpoints everywhere, and basically you had to be within your suburb. Like you couldn't you could go out for a walk, but it had to be within your suburb. And it was like crazy, but everyone, I don't know, there was just this togetherness where every single person was in the same boat, and in terms of finance. So basically businesses that had to shut down, which were all businesses, were given grants to still pay their employees and to help cover their losses. I'm not for sure. I don't think the employees were paid 100% of what they were, but I want to say it was around 80, but I'm not for sure because I fortunately wasn't in that boat. But so basically businesses applied, and then they still paid their employees. So like if I had lost my job, I wouldn't have directly applied to the government, but my business would. And then my company would apply on my behalf, and then they would still be paying me my wage. So we had a 6-week lockdown. And then after that, we went to a level 4, which was very strict. And then we went to a level 3, which was like a lockdown, but with takeaway. And then
lockdown, but you can pick up your food on the go.
Now you can get a coffee and take it to your house and drink it. And then level 2 was like you could have small gatherings of no greater than 10, and that included like in businesses. And then level 1, which was basically nothing. And so then life basically returned to normal. Like we still had to wear masks. And for 3 months, it was like fine. And then we went back into a 5-week, like really hard lockdown. And that was in August. And since then, like life in New Zealand is normal. Like even now, there's no masks. It's smooth sailing. So basically they hit it hard. I felt like there was just a support. Every day there were newscasts. The Prime Minister would be FaceTiming people from the country from her bed at 10:30 at night. And there was just this togetherness. Even at shopping malls, people were very supportive. You know, again, like healthcare is not tied to your job. So there was not that worry of like, if I get the virus, will I be able to, you know, afford treatment? There were testing centers set up everywhere. So if you were worried, you could just walk to, they would just set up these tents basically, and you could go get tested and have your answer within 48 hours. So yeah, there was just, I don't know, it just felt supported. It felt like it didn't feel like this big burden. You know, obviously there were deaths and it was bad, but in terms of like being supported and financially and mentally, I feel like they handled it quite well.
Yeah.
I've noticed that because I did find a great site that I'll send to Kat, and he can put in the comments that kind of just shows the trends and what different countries are doing. And it looks, and you know, how the ones that hit it really hard at the beginning aren't suffering the way we are now. But also there's some interesting things about like even the contact tracing, which we've really resisted here. But you guys have very extensive contact.
It was, yeah, it was insane. Like basically every single business had to have this thing that you scan. And even if you were pumping gas, you scanned. Anytime you left your house and went somewhere, you scanned it. And so basically, like, let's say I had the virus, I would report it. And they could look at my phone and say, oh, I was here, here, here. And then send out a notification and let everyone know, like, hey, if you were at this supermarket on a Wednesday, you know, this person was here with COVID. So it was so easy to trace where the virus was and how to alert people. And yeah, there was no real resistance. Like at first people forgot, but it was just such a presented in a way that like we're all in this together. Every single person's doing this. You know, this is what's going to, if we want to get to normal, we have to do these hard things and maybe annoying things. But everyone seemed to really like buy into that, and yeah, it paid off.
So I know where our brains go as US citizens, at least a good majority, is that the thought of having a card that tracked you would freak everybody out. Not everybody, but
A lot
most
of
people here,
people.
because it would be used because it's a step more. We've already had a lot of I'm trying to stay on the good list for YouTube. It's like, how do I say it in the right words? Kat, do you know what I'm trying to say? That
Yeah, I mean, what I glean from this, and again, this is us pulling it apart. It's not about labeling people or judging people, right?
right?
There's about the conversation is, are you compliant and are you willing to go along with the system? Is this whole thing, because let's read Suzanne's comment. Court gave us Suzanne's comment. It changed the dynamics of the country unnecessarily. We should have never been shut down. And I honestly think it was biowarfare. And that is what there's a good portion of people, especially in this community, that see the virus as biowarfare, and it's an experiment on controlling a narrative and getting people to finally bow down to high tech and finally bow down to saying, here's our power, tell us what to do. Tell me what's safe. What's safe? What should I do? How can I be safe? Oh, tell me. Oh, you tell me what I should do. And giving this power away versus the people who are maybe not quite that hysterical about it and who are more like, well, I want to be safe. I want to be rational. What should I do? Versus the people who are like, don't tell me how to live my life. I'm in America. And so there's this continuum of people, right? And what we're trying to do is, what this conversation really about is about plucking apart how countries have responded and the support they provided. And you know, where I am versus, you know, in that camp, I'm more about like, why don't people talk about how to boost your immune system? Why is there no conversation about how to like be the healthiest person you can be? And everything is reactive as opposed to proactive. Well, that's interesting that things are reactive and not proactive. And there's no conversations about being proactive and and being able to own your immune system and what that looks like. That doesn't really sell money very well. Like that's where I come from. It doesn't sell products. It doesn't sell pretty much. Like anything that's autonomous where you own your power, you can't sell a product for that. So because only when you give me your power can I finally sell you a product. That's where I come from. And that may not be where other people come from. Some people, like we have some people tuning in that are saying that the virus is fake. I don't, and that is a portion of people who would say the virus is fake. I don't know that the virus is fake. I think there might be some general misinformation around the virus one way or the other. But what we're looking at in this conversation is how our countries actually took care of their people or didn't take care of the people. So we have to bring it back to the core of this conversation, which is how did the country show up or not show up? You know what I'm saying? It's like the juxt of this conversation is this government that is supposedly there to care for its people, did it show up and care for its people or not? And we're looking at the US, which people were left flailing, a lot of them, unless they fell into necessary or high tech, anywhere in between, those people seem to got lost in the shuffle. Versus Canada, where it's like you could just sign up and right away, as long as you weren't trying to jam the system, you weren't trying to jive the system, you were going to have support. In New Zealand, those countries showed up for you, or those companies showed up for you immediately. The companies were actually the ones that advocated for you to the government and then provided you the funds. So despite our feelings, our emotions, and our beliefs about the virus itself, we're going to be looking at what the country did or didn't do for us.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is the United States has really bought into the trickle-down theory, where if we have the big dogs will employ a lot of people. They will do different things, and that money will trickle down to you. But there's only so many boats and so many estates and so many trips they can take and spend, and they're still getting less money to employees all the time. When we have major companies that have their employees on welfare because they're not making enough to survive, but they raked in record profits during this time.
Yeah.
So it's an incredibly broken system that needs shifting here. I think that this is bringing it to bear. I think it's bringing things up in our country, which is why there's so much unrest of you know, we see the waste, we see where money is being spent, and it could be reallocated very well to help take care of the citizens at this point, at least through this time. It doesn't mean returning into a communist state. It means that it's a trickle up theory. People who are needing that money will spend it. They'll spend it locally. Will spend it to have a roof over their head. It will get spent, and it will boost the economy much more than from the top down.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion.
Well, no, this is what we're doing. We're sharing our experiences and what because, you know, the whole thing is that we're not here to attack each other. We're here to listen to each other.
I think also oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, please, Nikayla, hop in.
Yeah.
I think like the
Jillian,
state.
hop in. Whenever somebody wants to hop in, hop in. Don't wait for permission, hop in.
I think the states has like thrived for so long being very competitive, and it's about the individual, and like, you know, when you have something like this happening, it's really hard to like not be like, but what about me, and like come together. as a unit versus just like me, I'm only worrying about me. And I found that like living in New Zealand and now I'm living in Canada, and there's this like sense of everyone, there's this togetherness that I feel like in the States it's very individual. And so people have trouble being like, not everyone, but like, why should I wear a mask when this person's not wearing a mask? Or it's just very me centric versus like Canada and New Zealand have been very like together. And so people just seem to, I mean, there's always going to be people that aren't complying, but in general, it seems that there was a lot less resistance to just wearing a mask and, you know, scanning where you're at and doing those little things.
I think there's so much to be said about that. Like, America really is the land of individualism. Like, that's kind of our hallmark, right? Like, it is all about the individual, and anything to the point of extreme is going to be toxic. Like, if you take anything that's good, if you love maraschino cherries, but you eat a whole jar of maraschino cherries, you're going to probably feel sick. So it's like, no matter what you take, what, you know, I'm empathic. But me, if I'm totally empathic and I can feel everything from everybody, I'm going to emotionally implode, right? So it's about balance, and it's about knowing where your place is at in the continuum. And popping back to Crystal Sheik's comment, thank you, Crystal, for popping in. We really appreciate your input. She's saying that people are protesting every Saturday. She says protest every Saturday in Vancouver, BC, thousands are going. And so that's on the opposite side of where Jillian lives. She's in Brunswick. So it's like, you know, we are looking at this continuum of me speaking up for my individual rights isn't meant to eclipse other people's individual rights. It's about saying, what is my right, and where do I choose to give up my individual right to help the collective? That's a really great conversation. And at the point that it becomes an F you because you're not standing up the way that I'm standing up, or you're not complying the way that I'm complying, that is where things get wiggly, because we are not listening to each other at that point. If somebody is saying, this is wrong and it is an abomination against my individual rights, that conversation is just as valid as we all need to be showing up for each other and doing this together because we want to get through this as a collective. That's also valid. We can suss out those details and we can suss out those gray areas, but that's a conversation. It's not about judging the other person because their belief system does not mirror our belief system. It's about being able to come together as a community and say, I don't agree with you. Isn't that interesting? Let's pull that apart and explore that together, right? As opposed to condemning another person because they don't sound like us. That's just more of the drama that, in my opinion, the people who are pulling the strings want us to engage in. They would love for us to be in conflict, because if we're in conflict, they have the power, because we're fighting each other, as opposed to saying, whoa, you're the string pullers. I'm taking back my string. Miss Jillian, I feel like you have something you want to say. Hop in.
Not really. I agree. I mean, I feel like that's kind of an agenda, is the separation. I don't really know how to explain it, but I feel it. And like that individual said, I mean, we're on opposite sides of Canada. Some people are handling it one way, we're handling it another, but it's this, we all need to come together and just try to understand each other's view. We don't have to subscribe to it. I can sit there and I can talk to somebody who has the exact opposite view of this situation and hear them. I don't have to agree with it. They don't have to agree with me. But I think the real poison of this whole situation, this whole virus situation, is the separation that it's causing. Yeah.
I agree. And I think one of the things that Kat had mentioned me going around for a temporary government position. And I did it because we were not going to get funding if we did not have success at this. And so that was a huge
So
reason why
who's we? We're not going to get funded. Who's we?
we, as in the state of Oregon, the local town, depended on this. I mean, you'll be able to read between the lines of what I was doing. But I would go to homes that I knew were diametrically opposed to my personal beliefs. And I had to put myself in check sometimes before I ever walked up to the door. And I had a rule to listen, and that nobody in my presence, especially me, was going to get away with name calling. Because as soon as you label something, you stop listening, you stop learning. So I had really good discussions, totally off of what I was doing, with a lot of people who turned around and said, wow, I thought you guys were going to say this, or you were going to say that. You were going to call me this or call me that. And this is actually, I could talk to you. Yeah. And it was shocking to them that they could talk to someone with a different mindset and talk policy versus position. And I really hope that what comes out of this is that we look at how other countries are doing this. We look at how other communities are handling it and doing well, and try to work towards solutions for our, even just starting in our local communities. Because again, if we can't rely on someone else to do that, we need to look at how we can create better communication, better. This whole last bit has given people a permission to be mean, given them a permission to be mean, to be mean with each other, to be angry, to dismiss each other. And if we're going to talk about our core beliefs, my core belief is we are all one. And if we can't look at someone and still, even the people that make me want to cuss and say bad things, there's this part of me that has to say, and yet we are one. We are from the same source.
Yeah.
What I condemn in you, I'm condemning in me.
And isn't this piece about, so people have anger on either side, on either camp, right?
Right.
You shouldn't be. You should be wearing a mask. You shouldn't have to wear a mask. All of that anger, at the root of that is fear. So if we can recognize that there's a fear, what's the fear? Well, the fear is, fill in the blanks. The fear is I'm going to be harmed. The fear is that my grandma's going to die. The fear is that I'm going to be put into a camp somewhere. The fear is that there's fear of losing power. There's fear of losing your life. There's fear of losing your life source, connection to life source energy. And if we can come down to the core of what the fear is about disempowerment. That's at the crux of the fear in terms of what I can sense and what I can see. And if we can get clear that we're all afraid of losing personal power, personal sovereignty, personal health, personal choice, and if we can agree on that and how we're reacting to it is different, but the core fear is the same, that's a great place to start a conversation. Miss Nikayla, I would love for you to hop in and for you to share anything that's going through your mind right now.
Yeah, just Yeah, I don't know. I found it interesting. I think, I mean, going back to like New Zealand, it's a very small country and
Right.
very vulnerable where like if the virus did, you know, spread massively, that would really, really affect the country. And I don't know if it was that, but it seemed that people were able, and I mean, of course, there's the people that didn't want to wear masks, but it didn't seem as politically charged as it is in the States. And even as it is in Canada, where I'm at now, it just seemed to be this sense of like, you know, we are very vulnerable, and we have to put our fear or even our beliefs aside and just do this, you know, just buckle down and do this. And there was no talk of a political agenda. There was no, you know, it was just something that, you know, we did for 6 weeks. And then after that, we were able to eventually go about on our day-to-day lives without a mask, you know, without these things. And even now, like they don't have masks. They are having concerts, festivals, sporting events, and they're still contact tracing. But you know, and it just kind of, I felt like prove to people that, you know, if you can set your fears and your beliefs or not non-beliefs aside and just everyone pitch in for this time, then like look at our, you know, they're reaping the benefits now where their economy is, you know, almost back to pre-virus times, you know, and like look at, you know, the States and still struggling with a massive amount of deaths and infections and just political turmoil. And so it's like polar opposite sides of a spectrum, I guess.
This is great though, because I love the counterpoints. We have to look at the counterpoints. And you know, it is a smaller country. It's not a massive country like the United States, which is just overwhelmingly large in many ways in comparison. And so, you know, it's like comparing that detail of, you know, like what's it mean for a larger company that's so massive versus a smaller company which is more inclusive, right? Like that's a different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Linda, it's getting to the top of the hour. I know that you have to hop off. I want to honor that.
And I think I have to stay in to continue with the recordings, and it's on mine. So
Oh,
yeah.
well,
So you can continue. I'm going to be very quiet for a little bit because I have to do something at the same time, but I am here. So continue the conversation.
ooh, wow. Let's talk about alarms going off. And so, yeah. And so on my side, I just FYI, hello everybody, but our technical side, I can click end on my side. As long as it's running on your side, Linda, I can click end on YouTube and it will end there. So if you,
it's the Zoom that I've got running. It's running on mine. I can't leave it.
so, oh, do you need to leave the Zoom to have a next Zoom talk?
If I move, so let's just not take more time with this. I'm doing what I need to do, and we can continue the conversation with you guys, and I'll pop in every once in a while.
Okay. And then I guess I'll do it on my side. I don't want to.
So
All right.
continue talking, and I'm here. I'm just in the background for a while.
You're
Okay.
multitasking.
I'm multitasking, everybody.
And that's real life right now. One of the things I wanted to talk about with Miss Nikayla was that in New Zealand, tell us about how New Zealand handled the homeless population when the pandemic hit.
Yeah, so that was pretty amazing. Like basically nobody was allowed in the country. And so hotels were just sitting open. And so all the homeless people were put in hotel rooms for the duration of the lockdown, which was pretty amazing because, I mean, yeah, like it's keeping them safe. You know, they're not in close proximity to everyone. And you know, it kept the hotels employed and the, you know, staff in those hotels employed as well and earning all of their wages. And so, yeah, they were all put into hotels. And then if, you know, the few people that were coming into the country, the New Zealand citizens, were all, they would come to the airport and then there would be a bus that would pick them up and then take them to a hotel. So it was very well, or, so they weren't, if it had come out that they had the virus, they were not within the community. They had been from the airport to the bus to this particular hotel. And then, yeah, all the other hotels were used, with the homeless population. And so that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, isn't it incredible that they served both the homeless community and the hotel industry simultaneously as a single point solution? Would that happen in America? Like that would just never, if I can't make money off you, then you have no point in being here. Like that's my take of America, like in a nutshell. Miss Jillian, I see you have some input. I can see by your body language.
Well, I wish that we did that here. I mean, we were in a position where the homeless, nothing. They had no help here, none. So what they did, we have the shelters here, the homeless shelters, which run all the time, but some of them were staying in there, but for the most part, it was business as usual. And I think that's such a great idea, because I'm in the tourism industry. I work in a hotel. I'm not working right now, but I work in a hotel. And if they would have done that, like that is the best idea I've heard since this whole started. Because the hotels right now, they're running maybe 20% staff. Yeah, that's a great idea. Jeez.
Yeah, pretty genius.
Yeah.
It's so compassionate and wise at the same time. And I live in Denver, and like what I've seen is that like, oh, the homeless issue, which was already substantial, and yet like people just look away. Like there was a park in the middle of Denver that has the homeless population rather occupying that area because they have no place else to go. And because, oh my gosh, if you want to get me started talking on like how Colorado handles the homeless situation, that's another video. But it was like, because we've all been working from home, or those of us who still have jobs and are able to work from home, which I am one of those very fortunate people who can do that. Like I've become very insular, right? Like I don't know what else is happening in Denver because I go to the place to pick up my groceries and come home. I go to the mountains and I come home. And so I went down to downtown Denver, drove through, and I was like, oh, the homeless population has exponentially grown and is now, flooding into other areas of Denver because this situation has not been handled. It's not been addressed. The thing that they were not addressing well before, of course, it's just going to go haywire and go every which way, because now more people are homeless because the pandemic was handled so poorly. So it's just, again, let's anchor it back into the core of this. This is a pivotal point of transformation. Do we choose to continue to give our power to a government that clearly, in America, I can only speak for America, clearly does not care about you, doesn't care about you? Can we understand that as a collective? That's a lot of energy. I know that was a lot of emotion that came through, but my position, we deal with people every day who are losing their home, their car, their phone, their life at the end of it. Are we gonna continue to give our power to a government that's like, do that, we don't care. I've got my designer ice cream, I'm eating at home right now. Is that where we're gonna give our power to, or is this gonna be an impetus for transformation where we finally get past our differences and connect arm in arm, heart in heart, and decide something different about how we choose to be in the world, how we choose to connect as humanity and we stop giving them our rights, we stop giving them our power, we stop giving them the permission to treat us as subhuman. That's kind of the core of this. This is an awakening point. Anyone's welcome to hop in. I know that was a hot emotional moment, but like literally there's so much emotional fire happening on this planet. It needs to be spoken to.
Yeah, that was powerful. And here we're watching you guys and we feel it too. I mean, it's been watching a circus. It's insane. And I agree with you 100%. Things need to change. They need to change now. Not down the road, right now.
Especially
Exactly.
with money healthcare being tied to your job is like that concept is absolutely insane.
Isn't that sick? Yeah. It's sick.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like as a citizen, you should have a right to basic healthcare. Like you shouldn't. Yeah, it's just the whole concept, and that's even a thing. It's just crazy.
You don't have the right for healthcare. You don't have the right. You don't have the right for healthcare.
Yeah.
Unless you have a job that covers it for you, or you've managed to scrape up enough money to pay for healthcare.
Yeah.
It's not a right.
Yeah.
It is something that is a privilege if you can afford it to have healthcare, which is actually sick care, because it's not focused. Again, this whole thing is about focusing on sickness and how to react to sickness, as opposed to proactively, how do you promote health in your life? I mean, that's like a nutshell moment where it's you don't have a right to even sick care, as opposed to, God forbid, healthcare, where we are sovereign in understanding how our bodies work and optimizing our bodies and being the most radiant, opulent person because we're entitled to organic, healthy food. Oh, we're so concerned about your health that we've outlawed fast food because that shit will send you to the grave faster than anything. Oh, all these toxic things in our environment, we've outlawed those because that will send you to your grave faster than anything. No. All that's okay. Be in reaction to it. Be in reaction to it and buy into this system where you are defending yourself against all the things that we've sanctioned that will kill your body, kill your immune system, and put you into the ground. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
I'll step back into this too and just say we've come to a sickness as a country here that has, and I know many countries have, it's not just us, but where profits are literally put before people. Profits are literally put before planet.
Oh, 100.
And everything is set up that way. A company, if they have stockholders, they're not, I can remember companies when you talked about them, you talked about how many employees they had. You talked about how much they took care of their community. That's not a measurement anymore. The measurement is, what have you done for me lately in putting money in my pocket?
Oh, yeah.
And so it's literally hardwired into businesses. And so if we don't start demanding that that's not how we find a value in a business as a consumer, as a stakeholder in businesses, nothing's going to change. And I know we're getting off topic in a bit, but it is that sovereignty that we're looking for, is that we really need to shift who controls the government. I understand why there is so much anger. I understand why DT got elected and why people rushed our capital. And we have to core change the system. There's lots of ways to do that if people are frustrated. So that, and it's by, number one, educating yourself, getting out of your bubble of where you're normally looking and learning from, and learn from other people, just as we're trying to do here, how are other countries handling this? If we can take that effort, then we can make a huge difference in how we are governed. There is a place for, my background was, I was a minor in political science. There are needs that a government can offer to help. But if they're not controlled by the people for the people,
That's
then
the
this
farce.
is what
That's the grand
happens.
farce, is that it's
Right.
for the people, by the people. That is a farce.
It is. And so it definitely shows right now that our American system is sick. For me, I don't care where it came from. I don't care what happened. It's a cosmic occurrence to bring to the surface our ailments to be cleared. And part of that is,
Amen. Oh my God, Linda, that is, oh, you always do that. You always like drive it home with a core thing. Say it again. That was perfect.
that this is a reflective state of being that we are in as a country, as a world, as individuals, that this big V is, I believe, we manifest things in a lot of ways. Collective manifestation, it is a symptom of a sick
Yes.
society, a sick world.
Yes.
And it is just it is a symptom. And so are we going to treat the symptoms? Well, sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to get
if your
the
arms
symptoms
pop
under
off, you should probably
control.
stop that from hemorrhaging. Yeah.
Right. We got to stop the hemorrhaging. And let's look at the root cause and fix that. Shall we?
Yeah. And the root cause is within us and our own personal disempowerment. And it's being reflected and shown back to us in a multitude of mirrors. And how do we choose to respond to this mirror of disempowerment by attacking each other? Is that your response, to attack the person next to you because you feel disempowered? What are you doing when you do that? You create more division and more people in the defensive position where they feel disempowered.
Right.
Think from your heart for a moment and choose something else. I want to read what Suzanne said and really honor her for piping in with a comment. It would be great to be compensated, but they would rather fund big corporations, other countries, and big military complex. Both sides are corrupt. Amen.
Amen.
Wings, one bird. 2 wings, 1 bird, Native American saying. It's not healthcare, it's sick care. Healthcare bankrupts people in America. It does need to change. It does need to change measurement. How long employees were with the company. Okay, so she's transitioning comments. She's got some several comments going on there. But thank you, Suzanne, number one, for showing up and being part of the conversation. And yeah, it is about compensating it's about the upper echelon, feeding the upper echelon. And what are they feeding them with? The energy of everyone beneath. Again, bringing it back to Linda's point, this is a mirror. What are you choosing when you look in the mirror? Do you punch the mirror, or are you going to have compassion to the mirror, which is anybody that you're looking at, because we are all one. If you look at another person and choose to attack them, you are attacking yourself. You are choosing to attack yourself whenever you attack another person. Is that what you choose? I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, you're in New Zealand, if you are in Canada, wherever you are at. We are all one. Think from your heart and not from your fear. Hop in, Miss Linda.
I'm just saying amen. Preach it. But yeah,
heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to be in a job every day, listening to people who are not who are being failed by their government every single day, and they're living out of their cars. They just lost their car and now they don't know where they're going to stay. Now they lost their cell phone. We can't reach you to tell you what your benefit supports are.
Yeah. And I think I'm seeing it, and I'm very sad that I'm seeing it in a lot of health professionals, alternative health professionals, that there is, when we talk about sovereignty, when we talk about owning our own shit, that's really what it is, right? I know I shouldn't have said the S word on here. Anyway,
Shit.
Marshaya. We also, to me, what's disheartening is that being interpreted into a much more, it's about me, it's not about us. You take care of you, I'll take care of me. And that separation, that autonomy is used as a weapon of separation.
It's used as a point of, it's emotional protection. It's a way of saying, it's too much for me. I'm going to disconnect. You have to take care of you. I'm doing my ascension. You have to take care of you. I'm doing my healing. You have to take care of you. Which, I can't manage Linda's issues. I can't manage Nikayla's, emotional stuff. I can show up and be a loving person. But let's talk about what it means to be connected versus what it means to be an individual to the power of 10. So our next show is actually going to be about Sasquatch. We show up for that. But let's talk about,
be a little lighter.
But the point about that is that let's talk about what it means to be a civilization that is able to actually take care of itself as a collective versus a civilization that's like, well, that's your problem, not mine. The planet Earth, in terms of when we talk about star nations and how star nations see us, we're not even at like level 0 yet, because we see people suffering in Africa. We see people suffering across the street and we're like, well, that's your problem. As a collective, we don't understand how to reach out and create a system that includes everybody. Like Nikayla is saying, in New Zealand, everybody was like, okay, we're going to hop on the same boat. We're going to take care of it as a collective. We're going to put our individualism aside for this moment and focus on collectivism. And we're all going to work as a collective so that we can therefore progress together. Because this planet has no understanding about how to say, oh, you're suffering in Africa? Hold up, everybody, stop everything. They're suffering in Africa. We're gonna solve this as a collective. We don't get that because it doesn't make money. If it doesn't make money, then I don't care. You can't give me money, I don't care. That's the bottom line on a lot of this planet. And with that disease, that thought, which is a corruptive disease thought ruling our consciousness, we don't even register as a 0 level planet in terms of the galactic scope. That's where we are. Here's some humble pie. Everybody gets a slice because we don't get it as a collective. We are too focused on individual. No, I can't caretake what's happening with Jillian. I can't caretake what's happening with Linda, but I can be present to it. I can be real about it. I can be compassionate. If we can do that as a collective, we would finally evolve forward. But because you can't pay me, I don't care. Can't pay me, don't care. Can't pay me, not my problem. That's the disease that we live in as a planet every single day. And that is the disease in our heart and why we attack each other as opposed to seeing who's pulling the strings and saying, you don't get to have my string anymore. I pull that string back because I care about her. I care about him. I care about them. You're not pulling my string because we are a collective and your word doesn't mean anything anymore. That is what I pray for us to evolve into.
I think that's a pretty great place to end this, actually.
Yep. I'll have to get a pulpit if I go any further. They'll have to get.
We'll have to get at least a soapbox for us all, because we'll all have a chance. Is there anything additional that anyone wants to say
Yes.
as a goodbye and thank you?
This has been a great conversation and a much needed conversation. And Kat, I agree with you. Like, this is it. This is not like you said, we don't even match at a 0 galactically. And I know this.
I know you know, because you've had connections.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got to change. I mean,
Well, I'll say one last thing on that, and Nikayla, you get the last word, I think.
As always, so annoying, Nikayla.
As it should be.
I just want people to remember the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is apathy.
Yes.
So being apathetic about our situation or your neighbors or your own is the biggest amount of hate that you can have and put out. And I know that doesn't make sense, but I want you to
hate,
think about
but it's the biggest amount of like poo, right? It's like, it's the biggest counterweight, because if you're not passionate and you're not loving, if you hate is passion, love is still passion. What you're saying, Linda, is apathy is like you've cut it. You've cut your cord to connection and you're just like, whatever.
Right. Yeah. Okay, Nikayla.
I can't follow up with any of that, but thank you for having me on. And yeah, I mean, it's just like as a planet, as a nation, as individuals, you know, we're at a fork in the road basically, and you cannot just take there's no neutral ground, you know? And so it's kind of like the ball is in your court, and what you show up with and what you give to other people, you know, will be reflected back. And we're at a time where we're really seeing people's true colors. You can't just fly under the radar. And, you know, just hopefully everyone can come together, because I mean, it's a crazy time right now.
It is. And it's going to take ingenuity, looking at things with fresh eyes in different ways and taking action on that. And Suzanne said something, and I keep saying this is it, but I do want to say something, because she came from a very, I'm going to say it, male-dominated industry of ranching. And she has been fighting the good fight for a long time to change. Huh?
Who's she that you're talking about?
Suzanne, who's watching this.
Oh, okay.
And I know a little bit about her. She's fought the good fight for years to change the industry. And she's found, like, as that's coming through, what's coming into fruition for her is that she's going to start helping small farmers be big, small ranchers be big. And she's working with someone who's helping to reestablish a different infrastructure. I don't know if I'm supposed to say all that, Suzanne, but we haven't talked about who it is.
Too late now. It's
Too
live
late now. If I need to cut that end part off, we can.
Late now.
But I really think that creative ingenuity on problem solving for us is one of our greatest gifts.
Amen.
And now I'm seeing that there's an error in our live feed for YouTube, so I'm not sure if that's actually showing what we've been doing.
We're going, girl. We're going. I can see it on YouTube.
Okay, so good.
We're good. All right. I will go ahead and wrap it up there. I want to thank the lovely Linda Coulter-Burge.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for always just for being you. And Jillian, thank you for coming out from behind the curtain of our engagement gal and into somebody who's able to share your wisdom and experiences. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Nikayla, even though you grated my nerves the entire time that you were on the show, I love you to bits. Thank you so much, Nikayla, for coming in and sharing your experiences with the pandemic in New Zealand and how mind-blowing it is versus what we experienced in the US. Thank you, Nikayla.
No worries. This was filled with straight whiskey just to be able to deal with Kat. So, and thank you for having me.
So real. So real.
Awesome.
I'm an asshole. All right.
Okay, I gotta go, guys.
All right.
Thank
Let's
you.
gotta go. Thank you,
See ya.
everyone. Bless
Okay.
you. And we'll see you this Saturday. We're going to be talking about Sasquatch. Bring Sasquatch home into your home. How do you do it? Find out this Saturday. We love you. Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.